Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to talk to you about the quality here at Nature Sunshine and Synergy. My background is in microbiology. I have my bachelor's degree in microbiology. Previous career, I spent 12 years in the pharmaceutical industry, also in quality control. And I've been almost 6 years with Nature Sunshine and Synergy. Yep. And I'm over all of quality assurance and quality control. The first thing I want to talk about is all of our certifications that we have that govern how our facility is operated. First certification that we have is called NSF. They regulate how we clean, how we produce, and how we operate our entire facility. The second one and the third one, the Utah Department of Agriculture and the USDA Organic both deal with how we handle the use of pesticides in any of our raw materials. Yeah, they have very strict regulations on pesticides and what we are allowed to have and how we are allowed to store them within our facility. The Ivanka Halal, OU kosher, and KO kosher regulate how we deal with the cultural and religious regulations associated with the Islamic community and the Jewish community. That also governs how we purchase our raw materials, how we store the raw materials, and where we are allowed to manufacture them at. ISO 17025 2017 is associated with the laboratories only. ISO is a regulatory body that comes in and audits versus and compares how we operate to certain standards. They come in and they audit all of the different methods that we use, and they provide us feedback on if those methods are acceptable and viable or not. They also ensure we're operating under the highest standards of the laboratories across the world. ISO 9001 2015 deals with the manufacturing facility. So this governs how we clean, what our paperwork looks like. Everything that's run on any piece of equipment is governed by ISO 9001. ISC certification for aloe involves specifically our aloe-based products, and we just go through that certification to ensure that we're using the best aloe possible in any of our finished goods. Those are all of the certifications that we have that govern how we operate. They're very strict. We are audited by these companies and organizations multiple times a year. We are also audited by all of the international regulatory bodies. For the United States, that's the FDA. And for most of Europe, parts of Asia, the Australia, the TGA is the governing body over that, and they audit us frequently. We need to make sure that that tablet or capsule is getting all the way into your intestines before it gets absorbed, right? Mm-hmm. So that piece of equipment allows us to do that. We coat our tablets if we want them to be absorbed in the intestines a certain way. That's all done up at the Hughes Center. I don't know if you've been up to Lehigh.
We're going to be there tomorrow.
Yeah, they do all the development and the research and development up there. We just do the testing. But that piece of equipment allows us to determine, hey, where at in the body is this going to be absorbed?
Wow, okay.
So that's how we know that.
Interesting. So basically when you swallow something, so the acid does not destroy it can actually go through it.
Yep.
Like liposomal versions. Yep. Okay.
And we have some that are not, or it's a time release.
Oh, it's a time release.
There can be a time release or an immediate release, however it's formulated.
Cool.
We have both options. Okay.
Darren, it was really interesting touring around with you. So, okay, let's check out for labs.
So this is what separates Nature Sunshine and Synergy from the rest of the world in supplements. The amount of testing that we do and the attention to quality that we focus on is second to none. Even before it gets to the labs, our purchasers or our buyers have a very strict requirement list that our vendors have to go through to even be considered for us to buy raw materials from them. We want to make sure we're always bringing in the highest standard raw materials available in the market. And a lot of our vendors say they can hit our requirements. We get the product in and they don't. so we can no longer use them as a vendor. So once a vendor passes through this rigorous checklist and requirement list, then we get the sample into the lab and we begin testing. Now, keep in mind through all of this, we test every raw material as it comes into the lab, but we're also testing every finished good before it leaves to go to customers. So now within our laboratory, we have 4 different labs: an herb lab, a mineral lab, a vitamin lab, and a microbiology lab. The labs are looking for 4 specific things: identification, purity, potency, and safety. If you look on the back of any of the Synergy or Nature Sunshine products, there's a nutritional panel full of label claims that we have to ensure we're hitting. Across those 4 laboratories, we have more than 600 active testing methods that we use. Like I talked about before, we have a significant emphasis in quality at source, which is where we purchase the raw materials before it even arrives at the lab. And we have 15 different scientists that work here: physicists, chemists, and microbiologists. So let's focus on the herb lab. The piece of equipment that you can see there we have in our lab is called an HPTLC, and that allows us to identify the raw material herbs that come into the lab. Now, we know with an herb like ashwagandha, the herbal benefit is in the roots. So we need to make sure our vendors aren't sending us the leaves and the stems and the flowers. So each herb provides almost like a fingerprint type identification using this equipment. And that specific herb will have a different identification if it's the root or the leaf of the plant. So we want to make sure for at least ashwagandha, we are only getting the roots. And we do that for every herb that we receive into the facility. We also use an instrument called UV-Vis that allows us to do very similar types of identification, but those are more chemically based. We also perform all of our physical testing in the herb lab. This involves density and particle size. These tests are to ensure that the product will run as it was designed downstairs in our manufacturing facility. In the herb lab, we also test for any type of residual radiation on any products. We know there are certain parts of the world that have had radiation exposure, and we want to make sure none of that finds its way into our products. We also test dissolution. This was the test I was describing in the video that was shown earlier. Using this type of testing, we can make sure that the tablet or the capsule is dissolved where we want it to be, whether it's in the stomach or the intestines. We can also determine if we can label something as a time-released product or not using the dissolution testing. We also do testing for pesticides in accordance to our organic and our Department of Agriculture requirements. Okay, let's go on to the mineral lab. So this piece of equipment that's pictured here is called an ICP-MS. This piece of equipment is by far our most expensive piece of equipment in all of the laboratory. 5 years ago, we paid $500,000 for this piece of equipment. If you were to buy one now, it would probably be about $750,000. So this piece of equipment helps us make sure we don't have any heavy metal contamination in our products. So the main function of this in that function is safety. So the heavy metals that we're looking for specifically are arsenic, mercury, lead, and cadmium. Each country has its own regulations on what those safety limits are. And we want to make sure our products are well below any of those safety limits. We also make a lot of products that have beneficial minerals in them. So sodium, calcium, magnesium, we want to make sure we're able to detect those to prove those are also present in our product. So this piece of equipment can detect parts per million, parts per billion, and in certain circumstances, parts per trillion. So these are very small amounts, and it is very sensitive equipment. In the mineral lab, we also do all of our protein testing. For example, in all of our maximum protein products, we claim we have 23 grams of protein. We need to be able to prove that we have at least 23 grams of protein in each bag. Okay, let's go on to the vitamin lab. So these pictures are images of pieces of equipment called HPLCs. These pieces of equipment help us to identify potency and purity. So if we're going to say we have a vitamin C tablet that is 100% vitamin C, this is the piece of equipment that we would use to prove that. In the vitamin lab, we also do a lot of our wet chemistry testing. These would be the same types of tests you would see in like a high school chemistry class or a college chemistry class. So there's a lot of color changes, a lot of volume differences, things like that. We also taste test every finished good before it leaves our facility. We also test the physical parameters of the finished goods. We need to make sure that the product is the correct volume, the viscosity if it's a lotion or a cream, and a weight if it's in a bag with a certain number of servings. Within this lab, we also use gas chromatography. Some of our raw materials are distilled using various solvents, and that happens from the vendors. So we want to test those raw materials to make sure that those solvents are no longer present by the time it gets to us. Okay, let's go to the microbiology lab. This is by far the busiest lab in all of the quality control laboratories. As mentioned before, they test every raw material and every finished product. Their main function is we're looking for safety. The tests that we perform are total plate count, yeast and mold, Staphylococcus, Pseudomonas, Candida, Aspergillus, Clostridium, Shigella, and we have various products where we have beneficial microorganisms called probiotics. And we want to make sure that we're able to quantify that we have the appropriate number of probiotics present. Now, our regulations also require us that we have to monitor the entire manufacturing environment. So we have to test all the water that is used in manufacturing. We have to test all the air that's in any of the manufacturing suites. And we have to test all of the product contact surfaces down in the manufacturing suite. So this means all of the machinery, all the tables, all the scoops. We also have to make sure we don't have any cross-contamination with allergens. We don't want any safety concerns or problems with any of our products. So that encompasses all of the laboratories here at Nature Sunshine and Synergy. It is a significant investment in our products to make sure that we're providing the best possible for our customers to buy. Do you want to do questions now, or how do you want to handle it?
We already are getting questions, but first I have some questions. You are hiding 21 Olympic pools in the mineral lab.
No, but we could detect if we needed to.
That sentence that we are using, one drop in 21 Olympic pools, is hiding actually in mineral lab.
Yes, we talked about that a little bit. We mentioned that we have the ability to detect that down to a part per trillion.
If you said that Synergy stand out, for sure, because of all that testing you make in all 4 labs. So anything else you would say why Synergy products stand out compared to competition?
I think the biggest thing that helps us out the most is our vendor qualification program. Our vendors know that if they don't send us their best stuff, we're sending it back.
What happens if a batch fails testing?
So it doesn't happen very often, but when it does, the product is essentially thrown away.
This is for the product. What about for raw materials?
For a raw material, if something doesn't fail, as I mentioned before, we just send it back to our vendor.
I like this question. What is your favorite Synergy product?
I like the pro-arginine products.
Can we trust Synergy product? Can we say that the Synergy and Nature Sunshine will maintain the same level of quality also 10 years from now?
Yeah, so Nature Sunshine, which is the parent company for Synergy, has been in business for almost 53 years now, and we've maintained the same quality standards throughout that entire existence. So we're happy to maintain that same degree of quality throughout the Nature Sunshine and Synergy profile for the rest of our existence.
First, I saw the question from Martina. that she's experiencing excellent results with products. Some individuals experience itchiness or skin rash, so this is not caused by pollutants or anything harmful. So we can be sure about it.
So as I mentioned before, every finished good lot is tested for any harmful microorganisms or heavy metals or anything else like that that would be a safety concern.
And then we have a question from Jana. If she understood you well, Synergy pre-qualifies every supplier, required certificates for every raw material prior to raw material testing.
Yes, that's correct. I am not aware of any that we have an ownership of. We purchase all of our raw materials.
Okay. So the question is regarding the quality advantage. If we compare to our competition, if we offer our omega, that and somebody says that some competition has more advanced omega formula. She would like to understand the quality advantage, like with omega, that we can at least say why our omega-3 is highest quality.
Yeah, so the advantage is we're going to have the documentation and the test results to prove what we have. And we're going to be able to prove that those results are tied to that specific lot of product that our consumers are taking. Chances are our competitors are not going to be able to provide that. Many of them will take their vendors' data and just use their data to say this is our product.
Greens and ProRG, where the key raw materials come from.
So each raw material, when it comes in, has a specification associated with it. Part of that specification is it has to define what part of the world that raw material was purchased from. So I can't, off the top of my head, I don't know where the individual ones come from. But each one has to hit or has to meet the specification requirements, which governs exactly where it can come from and where it can't come from. Yeah, we have, I think it's like 1,600 raw materials that we use in our facility, and I can't keep track of all of them.
Do we have some synthetic components in our products?
I don't know if they would be considered synthetic.
Mm-hmm.
I cannot think of any synthetic raw materials off the top of my head, but I can look into that a little bit more to make sure, but I can't think of.
What about plastic bottles of Mystify and Phytolife? Can plastic interfere to product?
So the plastic we use in our bottles has to be able to withstand the pasteurization process without leaching any chemicals into our product.
Thank you for joining our call and for giving us all the information.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.